Hello friend, welcome back. In our previous video, I have discussed about that URLs and also how can get some of the data and also from to the view, and here how can display it, right? So now that is all that our static data. But here if you want to actually get some of the data from to the database, right now we don't have any database. I show you that concept. So make that sure you understand that concept. Right now I just open it. So into the entrepreneurs.com here, that is all the data actually comes from to the database, right? So that is all that data. So right now, if you want to pass some of the data to the HTTP response, then how can do that work? So right now, that is actually our static one, right? So when you actually access that about, then what exactly is happening? As I told you before, it should be redirected to our this URL. And into the URL area, I have created one of the function name as a about. It should be redirected to our views into the about. That means the views, and then that is our about function, and that is our request and return HTTP request and response. And with this here I display some of the static data, right? So here if you want to get some of the data from to the database, so for doing this better, I want to take one of the variable and I just name that variable as a data. Okay, so this is the variable here. I want to get all the data from to the database. That means here you have to put all that query. That means if you want to get some of the data from to the database, then you have to put some of the query, right? That means get some data, get some or get all data from database. So from database. So here we have to put all that query for get all the data from to the database, and then we have to get this data with this variable. That means this variable. Okay, so now I just name it as a data. So then we have to pass it in our this HTTP response area. So how can do that work? So it's pretty much simple things, friends. So right now I don't have any database, right? So right now I don't have any database. So I just simply predicting that is actually comes from some of the data from the database. So here we have to put some of the comment, or here we have to put some of the query for get all the data from the database. Like here I name it as a get all the data from database right now. So that is one of the string text. Okay, and I just take that text with this data. So now we have to actually pass it in our this HTTP response. Here if you want to pass it, simply pass that variable. Okay, so here you have to simply pass that variable. So now what exactly it should be response, like I just show you. Click as a save all, and now if you refresh it, so now here you can see it's now showing our get all data from the database, right? That means it's now perfectly getting our this data. That means there is actually that should be some of the query. That should be some of the query for get all the data. So right now I just simply pass some of the string text, and here I get that text. That means our this data from the database, and I take the things with this variable, and now I just simply pass that variable in our returned HTTP response into the data area. So right now here I didn't create any template. So right, you can see that is actually I didn't create any template. So laterally I will also show you how can create some of the template, and into the template area how can pass some of the data. That means how can get that data from to the database, and how can visible it in our template area. So right now just take that concept. If you want to get some of the data, here we have to put that query, and we get that things with one of the variable, and then we have to pass it in our template area. So right now I just simply pass it with our HTTP response. Laterally when we will create some of the template into the template area, I will show you how can pass it again. So that is actually the procedure for pass some of the data to the HTTP response. So in our next video I will show you how can create the apps. As I told you in Django that you actually combine with multiple apps. So how can create that apps in our next video, I will show you that things with a live example. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.